All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the March session of the PowerShell virtual chapter of PASS. We're going to start out with some community news real quick before our session today. PASS would like me to tell you all about the Business Analytics Conference coming up in San Jose, California, May 2nd through the 4th. Here's the info on that. There's lots of other virtual chapters besides just our own. Please take a look around and see which other ones might interest you and check out some of their sessions. There are some virtual chapter sessions still to come later this month. I had to clean up and delete the ones that were already seen, so these are a little bit out of order. Sorry about that, but this will give you an idea of some of the sessions that are available to you. And of course, don't forget about SQL Saturdays. They'll be coming up in Boston and Richmond this weekend. Redmond, Huntington Beach, and Colorado Springs, all on April 2nd. And then if you're not in the US, we've got a list of ones coming up. Exeter, March 12th, Belgium, March 19th. Why didn't I sign up to go to Nepal? All right, sorry, focus. And you get the idea. And I'm curious if the one on April 9th, if that's pronounced Joinville, because if it is, I'd love to present in a place called Joinville. So volunteer opportunities, PASS would love to make sure that you know they exist, and you can simply go to volunteer.sqlpass.org to volunteer and to fill out your MyPass profile. Don't forget to connect with PASS on the LinkedIn page, Facebook, Twitter, and of course the website sqlpass.org. Now on to some PowerShell stuff. While Chrissy and I were putting together our sessions for our abstracts for the PASS Summit to submit them, we ran across some things in PowerShell where we got talking about things that we didn't like in the SQL PS module of the PowerShell module for SQL Server that comes with Management Studio. And while we were doing that, Chrissy actually started looking into how hard they would be to fix a couple of them and found that all one of them needed was to comment out a couple lines of code and replace it with something else, and then we'd get the load of the SQL PS module down from like 3 to 5 seconds to sub-second. So she went ahead and filed a connect item for that. We put in 2 more other things at the same time, and you can read more about that under the can we get these 3 SQL PS issues fixed before SQL Server 2016 RTMs blog post, and you can use this bit.ly link to read more about that, and we would greatly appreciate your upvotes on these items. We know that there's a very slim chance that it could possibly get added into the SQL 2016, but now's just as good a time as any to go ahead and start letting them know about it, letting them know what we want for it, and try and get them to get some traction on it, because they've obviously got the team all put together right now, so they can at least take a look at it. Also, we, especially for folks who don't use the SQL PS module, there could be more to it. Would love for there to be more to it, and we recommended that they consider open sourcing the SQL PS module and publishing the code on GitHub, and would love to get your upvote there as well, because we know that there's a lot of PowerShellers in the SQL Server world, and we know that we could all contribute more to what is in there right now. Also, finally, you can find all of the active SQL PS Connect items on the PowerShell virtual chapter site. So I actually even made it shorter for you. Just go to bit.ly/SQL bugs, SQL PS bugs, SQL PS being capital, bugs being lowercase, and you can see all the active bugs out there, and I know the other folks that have submitted those bugs would love your upvotes as well. Coming up later this month, Chrissy and I are doing a presentation on SQL Server's SQL CMD and using it on Linux with Windows authentication. We realize this isn't quite PowerShell specific, but we figured, hey, if anyone wanted to learn how to query from Linux via a command line, it would be the PowerShell people. So we're bringing that presentation to you next week. You can sign up on the website right now, powershell.sqlpass.org. Speaking of the website, Chrissy has been putting in a ton of time upgrading the website, making it look awesome. Ironically, she uses a font called Font Awesome to make it look so great. If you look in the upper right-hand corner area on the site, you'll see that there's a connection to GitHub. We've got our links to our slide decks, link to the YouTube channel and all the videos we put together. We've got links so that you can see all the presenters that have ever presented for us, all the sessions that have been recorded are up there, and you can get to them. We are now even taking the Q&A from all the sessions and putting them up there, kind of like an FAQ, so that people can look at it and hopefully find out some ways to fix problems that they're running into via questions that have been asked and answered already. Also on the website is a resources page. We definitely recommend you check that out. It's all the way there at the far right, in between, or right before you get to the little Twitter icon. You can get to our YouTube channel there, all these other things like the slide decks and all that, but also additional resources like SQL PSX, other PowerShell resources like just the PowerScripting podcast, all kinds of things that you might not know is out there in the PowerShell world that can help you with your learning experience. We've got quite a few of them out there. If you think there's an important one to add to that list, please let us know. And finally, once again, want to say that we're doing a call for speakers right now. If you've presented on PowerShell, or even if you haven't, would love to have you present for the PowerShell virtual chapter of PASS. We're doing 2 sessions per month for the rest of the year. We're really trying to ramp up the sharing of PowerShell knowledge in the SQL Server world. We've got still have openings April through August. That's what we're focusing on right now. And we want to point out that even if you're presenting a topic that someone else has presented before, we'd still love to have it. It's always great to have more voices, and would love to get you into the lineup. And now, finally, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Sander Stad. This is only Sander's second presentation ever, so please give him a warm welcome, and we're very glad to be able to have him here today. Sander, if you want to go ahead and start your recording now.
Okay, the recording is started.
Great.
I think you have to make me a presenter.
I can. And you've got it.
Cool. Welcome everybody. Welcome to Documenting SQL Server with PowerShell. The reason I do this presentation is I used to work as a consultant for a bunch of companies, and every time I came in, I would ask the DBA or the system administrator or the accidental DBA or whoever did anything with SQL Server, give me a list of all the databases and the servers, and they would be shocked most of the time. And they would go into their cubicle, it would take about 30 minutes, they would come back and then have a list with the databases. And then I'd ask them, okay, give me a list of all the databases and the latest backup and the DBCC check. And then their eyes got wider and wider, and it took them another hour to get all the information, and it was a waste of time. Usually, the documentation looked like this: a bunch of documentation everywhere, one big mess, nothing sorted, and it wasn't productive. So I'm going to show you a method, and you will never have to think about documenting your servers ever again, because it's so easy. Aaron introduced me already. I'm Sander. I'm a SQL Server DBA, MCSE data platform. I do something on Twitter sometimes. I have a blog where I post some articles regularly. And if you have any questions after this session about PowerShell or SQL Server, feel free to email me. I won't reply instantly because I get a lot of emails, but I will surely answer every question I get. So the agenda for today is why to document your servers, why use PowerShell, a few reasons why, ways to document your servers, so how can we retrieve the information, and what to document. So why document your servers? I think everybody is here because they know why to document their servers. But mostly you document your servers for somebody else. You don't document for yourself, you document for other people. If you ever get away from your company, you win a lottery or anything, you might want that your colleagues have all the information. But mostly I use my documentation to create baselines. I would like to know what my edition is, what hardware am I running, and can I build another machine precisely as the machine I currently run. I'd also like to compare servers and databases. If I have a production environment and a test environment with the same specs, and my production environment acts different from my test environment, I would like to know what the difference is. Try searching through SQL Server. There's so much information, you wouldn't find it. And I would like to compare my databases. I don't think you have a list of all your databases with all the properties. Most of the time. License and security audits. I've had a lot of issues with license auditing by Microsoft, where I just didn't know how much cores were in the machine or what edition I was running, and that got me into trouble with licensing. Security audits is an important fact too. If you ever worked for a financial company or a hospital or any of that kind, you would have some kind of ISO certification or other kind of certification that shows you are in control of your environment. If you don't document something like your the logins for SQL Server, you wouldn't know if people had too much privileges or on the server or on the database. So that can help a lot. And in the end, it helps with troubleshooting. The first thing you ask yourself, if you have an issue, is what changed? If you don't make any documentation of your server, you won't know what has been changed. And in the end, you'll be in control of your environment. So I use PowerShell. If you haven't used PowerShell yet, start with it. It's the most powerful tool for Microsoft to automate your processes. It's a shell in the scripting language, so you have the best of both worlds. But there's more. It's totally free. If you haven't got it on your workstation or on your server, you have it on your server. If you run Windows Server 2008 or above, but just download the Windows Management Framework. It's 5.0 at the moment. Install it, and you've got PowerShell. There's lots of info on the internet. I haven't found a case where I wanted to develop a script or solve some kind of problem and it wasn't already partially or fully documented. So there's no hurdle over there. It's easy to learn. If you have any scripting background, you'll be creating scripts all the time. Even if you don't have a scripting background, it's fairly easy to learn. It's not a big learning curve. And it will only get bigger. Microsoft has seen the potential, and if you look at the Azure platform, there isn't anything in the GUI that you can't do with PowerShell. It will only get bigger. So, ways to document your servers. We can get the information, but how are we going to save everything? We can put it in text files. PowerShell is really good in exporting to text or CSV. That's good for single-sided information, like a list of databases. But if you want to save your logins, your databases, and the database users, you could end up with 10 different files per server. And if you have over 100 instances, that will be 1,000 files, so that might be a little bit too much. But if you have small kinds of sets of data, I would use a text file. I'm a fan of Excel if it comes to documenting anything. I can use the tabs. I can use styles in my sheets, so it's more intuitive. You can save your data in a database. If you can retrieve the information, you can just as easily save it in a database. I can imagine you creating a table, get the information, put a timestamp on it, and save it in a database. If you do that regularly, you can see if anything changes. And XML. PowerShell is pretty good at writing to XML. I haven't found a situation where I could use it, but it's there. And there are a couple different ways to do that. So, ways to retrieve the information. There are a couple of ways we can get the info we want. One of them is the SQL Server Management Objects, the SMO. It's a collection of objects which help you control your SQL Server instance. It's even the management studio is built on SMO. So anything you do in the management studio can be done with the SMO. Now, Erwin already spoke about the SQL PS. I think the SQL PS module is really good. And people who have been using PowerShell for a long time, there used to be a SQL PS.exe with SQL Server 2005. That's not the one. I'm talking about the module. And it's really intuitive. You can easily go through your instance and CD through your databases, and it's really good at its there. And as a DBA, I've always used queries to get my information. So we can execute a query from PowerShell and get the information we want. So what do we have to document? SQL Server has so much information, it will be impossible, or at least not productive, to document everything. It kind of depends on your situation, but I think there are a few things you should at least document. One of them is machine information. Think about the OS. What version of Windows am I running? The disks, the free space on every disk. And think about the amount of memory I have in my system. The CPU, how many cores do I have? The database engine. Think about the configuration. There are about 100 different configurations in an instance. It would be really good to document those. Think about the addition, the collation, the logins. I would like to know what my logins have, what kind of privileges they have. I want to document my databases. What is the file configuration? What's the growth configuration? What's the collation? The users with their database roles. It would be really easy to get an overview of that. And the mostly forgotten SQL Server agent. I want to know when my jobs are running. What are the schedules? What's the latest outcome? Were they successful or failed? So let's do a demo, and I'm going to show you all the kind of different ways to document your server. I have a few little scripts that I'll be showing. I mostly use the PowerShell ISE. I'm a fan of this IDE. It's really fast, and I just like to easily script everything. I don't need any tools around. So this is a demo to export to CSV and XML. First, I clear the screen. I like to have just a clean screen, and then I load the SMO. I create an instance, my local PC. I can do this in a one-liner, but I'd like to declare variables, and I'm from a programming background, so I'd like to instantiate everything. I create a server object, get all the databases, and export everything. In the end, this is what I get. I get name, autoclose, never use autoclose, but I got it from this for this demo. Collation, compatibility, and the status. Easy enough. Well, let's export that information. I use the export CSV, export it to this directory. I don't want any type information, and I want a comma delimiter. So let's execute that, and it's already done. And if I open that, this is what I get. An easy enough overview of all the databases. But there's more. I can also export to XML. So let's export to XML. Same information. And this is what I get. And it isn't very intuitive. It's a long list of all kinds of information. This is probably a string, this is a boolean, and not very clear what is in there. So there's a solution for that. Since PowerShell 2.0, there's a convert to XML way to do this. Let's open that. And this is the other way around. So this was one method, and this is the other one. I can read through this fairly easy. I don't know if there's a case that I would need this, but there's a way, at least. So let's do something else. And this is the one I've been using for a while. Let's do another demo. Sorry for that. I've got a little function created to get the machine information I want and export it to Excel. Since Microsoft started to use the OpenXML format for Office, it's been really easy to create documents by just writing XML. Fortunately, there's also somebody who created the XLPS lib to create Excel files in a really easy way. This made my life really easy because in the past we had to use COM objects, and you might be familiar with that. COM objects are dead slow. If I would document about 10 or 20 instances, it would take about half an hour. Still, not that much time, but way too much time, in my opinion. And you would have Excel installed on the workstation or server you were running this from. So, not really that handy to use. So, the XLPS lib works really good for this. And there is the PSQL lib. This is a module I created over the years to help me retrieve information from SQL Server or host the information from a server. And it's really easy to use. So I import these two. I created a function with 3 different parameters: a server, an instance, and a destination. These two are pretty clear. The destination is where I write the file I want to create. I create a target because I want to know if the instance is empty or it's just a default instance, and set the target for that. I create a timestamp, output file, set the row position because I want to start on the first row on the sheet. The tab position, I want to use the first tab. And then we start creating the Excel package or the Excel sheets. So I create a package with an author and a title. I create a new workbook. I set some styling. This is literally copied from the CodePlex website, from the XLPS lib. I didn't want to do anything else with it. It was good as it was. And then we get to actually writing information, creating sheets. So I create a new sheet with system information, set the sheet at the current tab, get host information from the SQL lib, and there are two ways I can save information in an Excel sheet: either vertical tables or horizontal tables. With vertical tables, I have a header on the left side, and horizontal tables, I have a header on the first row on top. So with system information, I only have one kind of information, like the server name and the domain and the manufacturer. So it's all different, and that's more intuitive to use vertical tables. So I use the vertical table. Alright, write the first two columns, increase the row position, and then write the next two on the next row. And I go through all the different pieces of information. But if I have something like the SQL Server services, I would like to, because I have multiple services with the same information, I use horizontal tables. So I add a new worksheet. I get the tab position, I get the services, I set the header, increase the row, and look through all the services. And that gets copied all through the script. In the end, scroll all the way down. I like to automate things. So if I do this for one server, I want to do it for all my servers. So what I did is I created a little server.txt with a column, computer name, and SQL Server instance name, and put every server in there. I put in two items, a local host and the local name of my PC, and I looped through them. And in the end, it would look like something like this. So it starts to retrieve all the information and gives some status updates. This takes about 20-30 seconds. Done. We just documented two instances theoretically. So let's see how that looks like. Give me a second. Let's open Excel because it's an Excel sheet. And this is what you end up with. So this is a vertical tab I showed in the code. I got the Dell Precision M3800. I got operating system information, SQL services with horizontal tabs, disk information, instance configuration, all the options, What databases? A bunch of information. Database files. With all the row types. Nice, this percent. Very good. Database users. And the database privileges. And the funny thing is, you get all the privileges all next to each other. Login privileges, same as the database users. It just adds up all the different privileges. Agent jobs. Oh. Okay. So you end up with a sheet with all the information you want from your system. And this really helps to get in control of your environment. If you do this regularly, like once a month, and just check your information, you could really see if anything had changed. So these were the demos. Let's go back to the slides. So there are a bunch of resources I used in the past, or you can use for this. It's the Excel PowerShell library I used. It's on Codeplex. It's really well documented, so you can use it for your projects. PowerShell.org is a really good resource to get to know more about PowerShell. The Microsoft Virtual Academy has a few good courses. The library I have for retrieving all the information is free. You can get it from GitHub. Just copy and paste a little line of code and you get it installed. And there is an article where you can get the entire script I just executed to export to Excel. It's on Simple Talk, and you can get the script from there. So, any questions?
So far, all the questions have been mostly around the how to get the scripts and how to get to the slides and things like that. I'll read off a couple of them to you. That will be really useful. I really like this. Thank you for sharing this. Really awesome. Now I just want to put this into a database, of course. Great material, Sander. Here's a question. Why don't you show timestamps in your demo?
Why don't I show what?
Timestamps. I'm assuming timestamp of when you recorded the information, maybe.
There is a timestamp in the file. So in the file name, I have a timestamp with the year, month, and day, and even hours, minutes, and seconds. So if I export the file, I have a timestamp from when it was recorded.
Got it.
That's the timestamp I use. If you write it to a database, you would use a column, of course. But the timestamp for Excel is the file name, and that was the easiest way to save the information, because I can use the same name and then have a different timestamp and have all the files in one directory, and I can see all the different files for every instance.
We had a question asking, can you confirm the steps, each set of steps in order to run the final script? Probably good to recap that.
Each of the final steps you need to run that script. You would need the XLPSLib installed, the PSQL lib, the two modules, and have at least PowerShell 3.0. And then it's creating a server.txt file, which is in the end of the script. You could do it without, just do it for one instance, but I think you would like to do it for multiple instances, so you could create the file right away. So it's either install the necessary modules, make sure you have the right version of PowerShell, and create a file containing all your instances, and that's it.
Right. All right. Next question up for you is how can you run this against multiple servers at one time?
Multiple servers at one time.
Yep.
I would use that in parallel, or just in sequence.
I guess they were asking in parallel. Julie, if you can clarify that question, that'd be great. I'll go on to another one. Let's see. Oh, so the window's scrolling really fast now because there's a lot of questions coming in. Recommendations for environments with lots of servers, and each server has lots of databases. So I think they're worried about the volume of data.
Yeah, the script is pretty fast, so I would just create a list of all the databases with their instance names. I ran this script over 200 instances at once.
Okay.
And it took only about 10 minutes. So
okay, and Julie had clarified in sequence she has over 250 servers and doesn't want to have to run individually.
Yeah, well, you would have to create multiple server.txt files to and then run it in multiple screens. That's the way I would use it. Okay. But it's the same. It takes about 15 minutes to do it for 200 instances. So it's pretty fast. You could even schedule this as on a monthly basis, and then just let it run when you come in on Monday morning, you would have all your documentation ready.
You could also, I'll just point out to folks that you can leverage your registered servers or whatever the other commensurate to it is. I've got a blog post or multiple blog posts where I show how to leverage that for running across your entire set of SQL servers. That way you don't have to create an entire new list. You can just use what you've already got. So,
yeah.
Assuming you already have registered servers or the other thing, which is the name of which is escaping me at the moment.
And we'll also be adding a bunch of recipes for accessing Central Management Server to our GIST, or GIST, whatever. So you can check that out too. And there was a previous question about multi-threading. Something that I really love is Boprox's module, Posh RS job. So that's something that you can look into integrating. It uses run spaces as opposed to jobs. I haven't used Invoke Parallel. I think that might be Warren's script that uses run spaces. So if so, then that would be a really good way to do it as well.
And Chrissy got it. It was Central Management Servers. That's what I couldn't think of.
Yeah, that's my favorite way to manage things. So I have a lot of scripts that revolve around that I will be posting on our GitHub.
Yep. Sinner, if you want to take a look at the questions pane to see if you can answer a few more of these, there's quite a few have popped up in there.
Yeah, I'm trying to
this
scroll.
It's awesome.
It's really small. So.
Sorry. Yeah, and Julie, to get to his blog, you can just go to our presenters tab on PowerShell.sqlpass.org, and there will be a link to Sanders' blog right from there.
And Sander, have you tested your scripts against most of the versions of SQL Server?
Yeah, I tested it against, started from 2005.
Yeah.
If you go beyond that, it will generate errors, but it will still write to the Excel file. It will just say, hey, there's a blank value, and it will generate errors in your script.
That's been my experience as well. Most of the time when I work with PowerShell and SQL Server, it'll work really well with 2005 and above all the way to 2016. But you're right, there's a lot of nulls that go with SQL Server 2000.
And I haven't been able to fix that below 2005, so I imagine people upgrading from 2005 from this moment on, especially 2016.
Like I said earlier, I did try this against SQL Server 7, but it didn't work. I like to go back as far as possible, but for the most part, yeah, a lot of times SQL Server 2000 does throw in a lot of curveballs that I don't spend that much time on, because I do expect that people are going to go that they've upgraded by now. And if they haven't, they might not be using PowerShell.
Yeah. I'm trying to get through the questions. Is the PS SQL Lib a custom module? It's a custom module created by me.
Ooh, I'm sorry. I'm typing really quickly and probably loudly. I'll put this on mute.
One question was, can a PowerShell script be executed in T-SQL? Technically, yes, via XP command shell, but other than that, the only other way I've ever done it is through SQL agent jobs.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
and by SQL agent job, I mean I go out to the command, and I do not use the built-in PowerShell there.
No, I wouldn't execute PowerShell from SQL Server because you need extensive privileges for that.
Right. Only
I'd rather create a job that does the other way around and use scheduled tasks if I want to schedule anything. So.
Yep. I know exactly what you mean.
Hey, Sander, someone was asking what version of the OS in PowerShell is required. I would imagine it's PowerShell 3 onwards.
Yeah, it's PowerShell 3.0 and onwards. You can't even install the module I use for extracting the information. If it's below 3.0, it will just say you need to have 3.0 installed. I think PowerShell is already on 2003. So, yeah, 2003 and onward, at least. I don't think you can run PowerShell on 2000.
Yeah, I think I tried that. 2003 was the earliest I could go back. And I think that it didn't run anything above PowerShell 2.
One question here about what about execution as an SSIS package? Well, you can do a task in SSIS to execute PowerShell if you want. My emphasis would be on the words "if you want."
Cannot validate on argument parameter computer name. I think somebody tries to execute a script but doesn't get anything done because it can't find the computer name because it's null, and that's an error. I check for the parameters. The parameter computer name and SQL Server instance name can't be null. So you either didn't give those parameters executing the script, or you don't have a server.txt file created. At the end of the file, there's a for loop, and you need to point to that server.txt file, but that's probably the issue.
Sandra, do you want to bring up your bio slide again so that people can see your the address of your blog and all that?
Yeah.
And then they've got your contact information in case they want to send you more questions after this session.
Yeah, go ahead. The slides are going to be available anyway, but
Yep, we've already posted them.
good.
Also, since you
This is probably good.
Go on.
I was gonna say this is probably a good one to clarify for people. Are the libs installed on our local workstation or on the DB server itself?
It depends on where you run the script. You install the modules on the workstation or server you run this from, and they usually go into your documents folder. I think it's My Documents, Windows PowerShell modules, and you will find the modules over there. There's a way to make them global by putting them in the System32 directory, but I don't prefer that because I'd like to have that as clean as possible for just system management things.
I'm not that brave myself.
I just use my document folder.
Sorry, Chrissy, you were going to chime in with something?
Oh, I was just letting Sandra know that I did send a follow-up email. The audience was asking for your PS1 files. So as soon as you send those to me, then I can post them to our OneDrive.
The PS1 file, the script for the for writing to Excel.
Right, the one that you had loaded up in your ISE.
Yeah, you can also go to the SimpleTalk website and download the scripts from there.
Oh, super cool.
It's a low document in SQL Server with PowerShell. I created an article for this with that information. You can go through that, and you can download all the code from there. So that will probably be a better way.
Excellent.
I can also send the files to you, Chrissy, but I think it's better to put them in one spot.
I agree. So you have, in addition to your module, because I did link everyone to your module, do you also have the PS1 scripts available on SimpleTalk?
The module for the SQL Server PowerShell library I use to get the information is on my blog.
Right.
So that's not on the SimpleTalk website. The article does contain the full script for writing to Excel.
Cool. All right. Okay.
And the Excel PowerShell library is on Codeplex.
All right. If there's a couple questions you see that you want to answer real quick, let's get those knocked out, and then we can wrap up this session.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, Sander, your scripts support connecting to SQL Server remotely, so there is never a need to actually run these scripts on the SQL servers themselves, correct?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
It's all remote.
And just for the audience, that is something that you want to consider when you're creating PowerShell scripts, because it can connect remotely. You never really have to do just a local connect. You can go ahead and run it from, a central workstation and go and connect outward instead of running something perhaps dangerous on your local SQL server.
Yeah. The SMO works remote for and it does support remote execution because you connect to an instance by either an IP address or a name, and you get all the information you want. So,
Sander, there's a really important question in the list that I want to get to before the end of the session. It's from Lars, and it's asking, are you an audio guy? What is on your t-shirt on the bio slide?
what's on? I have to look it up. I don't know what's on my shirt. B2. I think it's a.
It says MIDI controller. That's what it is.
Yeah, it probably is. Let's see. What's on your shirt on the bio slide?
Yeah. All right, Chrissy, did you spot any other questions out there?
None that I mean, I see a bunch of questions, but none that I'm able to answer directly, or that would be easy to address.
Got it. Cool. Well, so what we'll do is, Sander, we'll give you the list of questions after we wrap up the session, and you can, you know, people have your contact information; they can reach out to you, and there we go.
Good. If there are any questions, I will try to answer them as quickly as possible. But feel free to email me, and I will answer any question that comes in. So.
All right. Well, Sander, thanks so much for presenting for us today.
Yes,
we really appreciate it.
It was fun. I hope so. People find it useful, and you no longer have a reason not to document your service. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
We just want to remind everyone.
Go on.
Just wanted to remind everyone we've got another session coming up. I believe it's next week, and then we'll have we'll be hosting up more sessions. So please check out the PowerShell.SQLpass.org VC site. We'll be keeping that updated with the most recent information, and we ask you to check in there because we try to only send out one email per month because we don't want to junk up your inbox. So that's pretty much all I got.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
And Sander, if you want to go ahead and hit stop on the recording now.